Hey everybody, KMO here. It is a nice day. I'm going to go outside to record, but first I need to read something to you. This is just the beginning of a Financial Times article by Janan Ganesh. And sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Part of it is that. Donald Trump reminds the West why it liked U.S. leadership. Those who grumbled about Pax Americana are being confronted with the alternative. So this dovetails with the Peter Zeihan material. This is from October 16th. Our favorite memories are actually memories of memories. Each time we recall an event or an era, another coat of varnish goes on until the original is romanticized out of all recognition. And so, a relationship that was fractious at the time slowly turns into the defining love of our life. Nothing has gained more from this mental alchemy than the world before 2016. The rules-based order, as it was seldom known back then, is now remembered as an airtight fraternity of like-minded nations, tragically gone to seed. It has become a prelapsarian Eden, which is to say, the Garden of Eden, the paradise before original sin, before the fall of man, before expulsion from the garden, before Donald Trump. Okay, back to Janan Ganesh, one more paragraph. The frequency with which countries chafed at U.S. leadership gets rather lost in the reverie. It is as though France never left NATO's command structure in 1966. It is as though West Germany did not court its communist East to some U.S. disquiet soon after. The city-clogging protests against Presidents Ronald Reagan and George W. Bush, the grousing about the Washington Consensus, these are revised away. So, Ganesh. S-H-C-H, these are the tough sounds for me now. Ganesh chucked a chunk of cheese. What's he talking about? You know, it seemed for a time, before Trump, that the Democrats and the Republicans both longed for the days of the Cold War when everything was so simple. We had a powerful enemy. We could talk shit about them all day. We could spend enormous fortunes building armaments that we hoped we would never have to use in a conflict against them because such a conflict would end in mutually assured destruction. Mutually assured destruction. But with the collapse of the Soviet Union and no, replacement threat on the horizon, boy, did 9/11 come as just a gift from God, to the establishment. Oh, thank God, an enemy to fight. Let's go fight them. And let's take the opportunity to clamp down internally, to criminalize dissent, to relegate free speech to designated zones. That was just a godsend for Democrats and Republicans alike. And Hillary Clinton, is the queen. I'm getting ahead of myself here, but... Yeah, so, Peter Zeihan talking about the accidental superpower because, the U.S. didn't really want to ever be the global hegemon, at least, not in the early days of Bretton Woods. It was looking to establish a balance of power because there was no model of a responsible hegemon from the past. I mean, everybody who could emulated the Roman Empire. And in fact, the United States, if you go to Washington, D.C. and you look around, you'll see all kinds of physical relics of the high esteem and the fascination with which the so-called founding fathers held both Roman architecture and the Roman style of government and also Egyptian architecture and iconography. Egypt being a monarchy and one might even say a theocracy, and then later it was a vassal state under the Roman Empire. And yet you go to Washington, D.C. and you see all of these Egyptian-style obelisks all over the place, including the big one. But, as the Soviet Union built its nuclear arsenal and the U.S. did the same, and we positioned our fighters, our proxy fighters in their proxy locations and saber-rattled and spent decades upon decades, doing everything necessary not to get into an open confrontation with them, we got into a situation where with the fall of the Soviet Union, we had the global hegemon. But it was a global hegemon that had spent decades establishing peace on the high seas, stability of shipping, and just an international military order. Pax, peace, at the barrel of a gun or at the point of a sword. but peace nonetheless. And so Donald Trump is not committed to any of that. He is ready to burn it all down. And as Mr. Ganesh would go on to say in the article that I couldn't, read all of it to you, nothing stings, nothing brings us to awareness like abandoning the Kurds and just, leaving Syria wide open for Turkey to roll in there, and quash what seemed to them like, something that was dangerously approaching a Kurdish state. The Kurds, they are a nationality without a nation. They're a people without a country. They are spread out through Turkey, Iraq, Syria, and the other country it's fuzzy in my head. I'd have to look at a map. But, and they have been oppressed by the Turks since long before Erdogan came to power. So this is nothing new. I mean, this is like a chemical reaction that had been held back. And now Donald Trump has removed the inhibition. The inhibiting force was the United States. And he is pulling out of those commitments. And not surprisingly, a lot of people who like to complain about Pax Americana, about, the military hegemon, the U.S., the imperial, the empire, they're not happy with what happens when you remove the empire, People who would have been fighting each other all along, but didn't because there was a foreign invader on their soil, turn against one another. I think this whole incident with Turkey and Trump, I mean, even if Trump wasn't the president, suppose Hillary Clinton was the president, but Recep Tayyip Erdogan still had the same priorities, would it be credible to consider Turkey an ally of the United States? Being an ally means that if Turkey is attacked, that the United States is required to respond as if Connecticut had been attacked, as if, South Carolina had been attacked. We have to treat an attack on an ally as if it were an attack on us. Is it plausible to consider Turkey an ally, regardless of what Donald Trump has done? Given, the authoritarianism of Erdogan, given his increasing, affinity for Vladimir Putin and Putin's style of autocracy, can we really say that they are our allies, that we would be willing to go and spend American blood for their security, for their territorial integrity? I know everybody, really almost everybody in the States who doesn't love Trump, wants everything in the world to be his fault. Even when he gives them things they said they've wanted. So, back to Pax Americana. Think about it. If in the past you have called the United States an empire, if you have claimed that the United States was, sucking the world dry, sending its troops here and there to prevent democracies from arising, to prop up brutal dictators, and you really wanted the U.S. to stop and just become a normal nation, not the global policeman, a normal nation, not the global policeman, not the military hegemon, not the guarantor of, stability and safety on the high seas, not, everybody's daddy, but just a normal country. Well, that's the direction that Trump is leading us. Are you happy? Is this what you wanted? Do you think it's going to play out the way it did in your imagination? All right, I'm going to stop there. I will talk to you again tomorrow. A regular commenter said more interviews. I will get some interview subjects going. I will have to put on my producer hat rather than just my vlogger hat, but I will do that. Talk to you tomorrow.